Welcome to episode 6 of the Margins of Victory podcast. Today, we switched up the format a little bit and we spoke with Dr. Eric Nichols, who is a vice president at WMT. I've known Eric for quite a long time. Eric is a friend of the podcast, and we kind of lobbed back and forth, to use a tennis analogy, different topics of what we thought were the biggest topics of 2025 heading into 26. Eric talks a lot about the tech stack and why you should have that integrated. We talked about facilities, we talked about ticketing, and we had a little bit of fun at the end debating the merits of the greatest baseball movie or sports movie of all time. I hope you enjoy this. Have a wonderful rest of 2025 and a great 2026. Welcome to episode 6 of Margins of Victory. I'm your host, Craig Pintens. Today, we are joined by Dr. Eric Nichols, who is the Vice President of Growth from WMT Digital. This is going to be a little bit different than our previous episodes. We're going to talk about some of the biggest topics from 2025 and then going into 2026. Don't really want to call it a year in review because everybody else does that. So we're just going to kind of riff and talk. Eric, happy that you're here. I'm happy that the show cause with the FCC is now expired and you're able to join us on the podcast today.
We've been waiting for this, December timeframe to get here so that I could join.
Yeah, no, I mean, you clearly were, episode 1 material, but we had to wait till the show cause expired. So thank you. So what we're going to do is you're going to throw out a topic that you think is important right now for 2025 going into 26. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll throw out a topic, and we'll just kind of go back and forth, kind of like a tennis match. We're just going to volley back and forth here.
That sounds fun. Are we debating each other, or are we agreeing on everything?
Well, I think given the fact that we know each other pretty well, I think there probably would be a little bit of debate. There could be some questions thrown in. Just feel free to jump in and just, you can call it a 30-second timeout and extend it to a full if you want, however you want to do this. So we'll go with you first. You have the first pick here. You can choose any topic, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. I'll go with a little recency bias. The last book I read is called The Modern Tech Stack. It is by Will Lawson, I believe. Fantastic read. He's talking about the value of the modern tech stack that you need to have to run a commercial operation in sports these days.
What is it? Explain what a tech stack is.
Yeah,
let's start there.
That's where I'm heading. So think
good.
Think of all of the data points and all the touch points that your fans have with your organization. Some have done a decent job of connecting those dots with data. But he's making the argument, and I'm making the argument, that those are a good step in the right direction, but the modern tech stack integrates all of that so that the user has a better experience, and you, the organization, can reach and monetize those users in a modern way. Let me illustrate that in a commercial opportunity. You and I have spent time in high major universities that have sold out football stadiums. Sometimes when you get to that football stadium being sold out, you feel like the job is done. And at least that's the way I have felt in many years past. That was the aim of the operation, and you kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit. Well, now with NIL, the capacity limit is removed. So you need a modern tech stack not only to identify all of your fans, but you have something to sell them when the stadium is sold out. You have something to sell that LA fan of the LSU Tigers who might not make it back to a game. And if they do make it back to the stadium is sold out, they don't have the opportunity. Those systems are in silos right now, and connecting those dots and making it efficient for the organization to communicate with those people is what the book talked about, and that's what I believe in.
Well, yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic and something that I think more people can definitely take advantage of, because if you think about it, we have all this technology at our hands. How do we kind of harness that? And I think one of the things that a lot of people can do a better job of is using some of that capability to maximize your ticket pricing. That is something that I think not everybody does a real good job of. And then taking it a step further, to your point, I think we do focus on selling out the venue, but what is the follow-up and how do we create kind of lifelong fans? I think for years people have talked about moving people up the escalator, and
And now they're
selling it
to the
out
top.
is, yeah, is just you're just getting them on the escalator if you're not taking full advantage of anything else.
I mean, I've heard
And
of some operations, NIL operations, where their NIL donors have exceeded their stadium capacity, and that kind of reset my mind in what the opportunity is. And yeah, you mentioned the key word. Everyone's reading about AI, but until your tech stack is organized, modern, accessible, then the AI is going to be limited. And there are many tools out there that can do AI ticket pricing. We have one, it's called Tillion, and it can move at the speed and granularity that humans can't. And you kind of need all of those things to work in harmony to reach your max potential.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely onto something, and you hit on my topic, which I think obviously is a big part of college athletics right now is NIL, and to me, that is something that it's clearly not going away. Obviously with the house settlement coming on board and the 20.5 that you're now allowed to spend per school, that has really changed just the dynamics of college athletics, particularly in football and in college basketball. And as we are now recording this in December, you're obviously seeing the transfer portal and some big names in the transfer portal, especially quarterbacks right now. My biggest question going, I guess, into 2026 is what will the effect be on both college football and college basketball? Because you had a lot of schools that were front loading some of those contracts because they had money left over in their collective to try to get ahead of the 20.5 that they could spend as a school. Will the spending kind of level off? Will it increase? Will it decrease? Obviously that's going to depend on the school and your particular situation, but I'm really curious to see what it looks like going forward. Everybody talks about donor fatigue, and on some level that has always been a topic of concern. I think when you were trying to build facilities, donor fatigue was a thing, and now as you get into NIL, donor fatigue is a thing. So for me, NIL is near the top from a revenue generation, because a lot of the revenue generation in college athletics, you're trying to fund NIL. So for me, that's a important topic. And Eric, you should be thankful that you're no longer on a campus, because you're
I
not
am.
having to think about that. You're thinking about all the fun stuff about
Yeah.
ways to generate revenue. But you have any thoughts on NIL and the
Yeah.
current state of college athletics?
I mean, I do have similar thoughts to you. Yes, I'm glad I don't have to deal with it necessarily. But I think you hit on something, the time horizon. You think about it before there was donor fatigue, always has been, but the time horizon was much different. It's okay, we need an investment so we can build this facility so that we can recruit the star student athletes to win and create championships. That was like a 8-year, 10-year time horizon. Now I need to raise money so I can provide NIL that may or may not contribute to this elite athlete joining our program to win a championship this year. And, there's only going to be one champion this year. There's going to be a lot of disappointed fan bases. And do they have the capacity? Sure, probably. I mean, I didn't think they had capacity for 20 million, but clearly they do. I don't know what the limit is, but I'm more concerned about the return, if you will.
Yeah, no, that is exactly, I think, the biggest thing that leads to fatigue, right? If you are contributing and you're not seeing that return, you might be a little bit more reluctant when they come around again to ask you for more for NIL. So for me, again, living in that world, I think it's just a topic that you can't get away from in college athletics. All right, Eric.
All
It's your
right.
turn. We're not
Uh,
doing we're not doing a snake draft, so I'm not doing 2 in a row. You gotta go again.
All right. Next one for me is I kind of want to attack the stadiums and the seating of stadiums and arenas, and almost think about it like dump them out and then pick them right back up. And how would you reconstruct them? I mean, capital investment in premium seating is, it has been the rage, and it's only accelerating now as people are getting more desperate's the wrong word, but getting more interested in finding new revenue streams. But whether it's building new premium spaces, making those spaces differentiated, you have your elite Uber founder suites, but then you also have your traditional suites. You have clubs, but they're clubs at different levels of price point, different amenities. I think that stratification of not only the premium seating, but then you can extend that all the way down into traditional bleacher arena seatings. I mean, gosh, I mean, the fact that we still have bleachers in most of college stadiums is kind of ridiculous even to say that. But the social spaces, I mean, I'm not the type of fan that sits in my seat the whole game. I'm a walker. So I love baseball stadiums that you can walk around and see the whole game. I love social spaces that have become more common, certainly in Major League Baseball, and I think those extend to college, and they create new revenue opportunities by reconstructing your ticket packages. Maybe it's not a ticket; it's a pass. Maybe you can oversell that pass, so you can, um, deliver a different product for a completely new market. The challenge in all of that is complexity, right? It's the choice paradox, and fans having too many options to choose from, and then they just get frustrated and opt out. That's our jobs as well. I say our as marketer. I still think of myself as a marketer, to figure that out and communicate a streamlined offer to the right person. What do you think?
Well, and I think you touch on something that a lot of the guests on this podcast have brought up is trying to identify those spaces and find something for every fan. Because, well, you might be the social fan that wants to walk around and just be there for the social experience. I was just at the Rams Lions game this past Sunday, and as part of LMU's sponsorship that we have with them, and we had actually one of the great field suites. It's down on the field, like, from the probably about the 25 to the end zone. For me, I didn't want to sit there. I want to watch the game.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's not the best experience to watch the game because you have a bunch of people in front of you. You're kind of looking up at the wonderful video board for most of the game to watch it, unless it happens to be in your little area of the field. So I think finding that thing for every single fan is something that is really important. Let me ask you a question on that topic, though. How would you go about examining that if you're with a professional team or a university? What's kind of the first step for that?
yeah. This is where I take my professional hat off of my current job and my fan hat on, and I straddle the line because professionally, if you want to maximize revenue, right? And there are AI models you can attach to a seat map to be able to illustrate how are you going to yield the most revenue out of this physical stadium based on not only historical sales but current demand and then dynamic demand. That stuff is really interesting, and it definitely maximizes the revenue. But as you're seeing what FIFA is going through right now, there's a PR concern that you have when you are maximizing revenue. So you put yourself in a little bit of a choice, right? And it doesn't have to be the same choice for every part of the stadium. But do you want to maximize revenue? Do you want to have maybe uh, incentivize long-term brand health and have more exposure? Those are the questions that you have to ask yourself. I mean, I think about I'm a English Premier League fan, and I look at those venues and how active and loud they are. They look like 80,000 student sections is what they look like,
Yeah.
but they don't have the same kind of ticket packages typically that we do domestically. And I worry a little bit about the atmospheres and whether we're going to lose a little bit. And that's an equation you have to balance.
Well, the Premier League is really fascinating because the majority of those stadiums are not set up with those amenities. They're set up for the fan that wants to go to the game and watch. I haven't had an opportunity to go to a Premier League game this summer. Did go to a Bayern Munich game, and it was just a friendly, so it wasn't quite the true full experience. But obviously, the crowd was amazing, even for a friendly. However, just the ingress egress to the stadium and the amenities that concessions wise that you would have and everything else that you're used to in the United States just didn't exist to the same level. And so it is fascinating. It's almost like if you could combine those two, you'd have something that would be really, really spectacular.
Well, I think the last thing I'll touch on, just and then I'll pass it back to your turn to serve, is just again going back to delivering a product for each fan type, and I think you can find a optimal mix between. I mean, when you think premium, it doesn't always have to be this mahogany walled, marble floored, glassed off, sterile environment. You can still have fun in a premium space, and I think you just got to continue to be creative.
Yeah, well, and I think that's where you're going to have a better sense of that depending on where you are, knowing your own fans, and even probably going back to that initial topic that you threw out. If you have a good sense of who your people are, you're going to know what is
Yeah,
going to work in your particular venue. So I think mirroring those ideas are pretty important. All right, so is my serve now? I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I feel like you're getting your serves in at a really high rate, and they're coming in ridiculously fast. I can't even return them, so I don't have a real big serve here.
Well, you better bring it.
I'm ready to bring it here. Well, this one is kind of it's almost like a lob serve. It'd almost be like a second serve here. But my topic is sports betting.
Mm,
Obviously it's been in the news quite a bit, and obviously it is a multi-billion-dollar industry in this country. But for me, the business side of it, I'm really fascinated in a couple things. Number one, what is the relationship that leagues and or teams are going to continue to take between sports betting? And thinking back years ago when sports betting really became more legalized on apps, you had some universities and even professional leagues and teams that instantly signed deals with whether it was FanDuel or DraftKings. And right now, obviously, ESPN tried to dip their toe in it with ESPN Bet, with Penn Entertainment, and then they kind of pivoted just recently to go back to DraftKings as kind of its partner. And so clearly there's a lot there. But even further, it has kind of taken note with some of the gambling issues that whether it's in the NBA, you've had some suspensions, and then even in college sports as well. And so for me, it's not going to slow down. And if you haven't listened to the wonderful podcast by Michael Lewis regarding this particular topic and its prevalence on college campuses, I would highly recommend it. But to me, this topic is something that is just going to continue to grow. And I think we're getting much closer. We talked about the Premier League, getting much closer to that live betting in venue. We're not too far away from that. And then the other area I think is really fascinating is the prediction markets. Is that considered gambling? Number one, and that'll be decided probably in the courts as that topic has continued to grow. But what impact will that have on the traditional sports betting? Because you can now basically sit on your phone and live bet these prediction markets that are going up and down. And so for me, sports betting is something that has taken a big hold on 25, and I think is going to become even bigger in 26.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I would attribute, and maybe the industry doesn't want me to say this, but I would
You
attribute a
can say
lot.
whatever you want. You're not
Yeah,
you're like in the industry, but not in the industry. Like what, I don't know what you are. You're a unicorn.
I'm not sure what I am either.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Um, that a lot of the success all of these sports are having, I'm not minimizing any of the other factors, but if you think from softball to women's basketball to football to basketball, a lot of them have seen a direct correlation to sports betting. And I would think that sports betting has led to more interest. More interest has led to more attention, ratings, attendance. Back to our comment a minute ago about ticket. How do you set up your venue for ticketing and attendance? And I think it's impacted by these uh, betting machinations. I think that's how you become it. That's the new entrance into being a fan sometimes of these teams. And as an industry, while it is shocking to an old head like me, it's the kind of thing that you need to embrace and figure out how to maneuver it, because it's not going to go away. I mean, you talked about the poly market as an example, and geez, I mean, how are you going to regulate that? I have no idea.
No. Well, and I think, if you read a little bit about it right now, Nevada is obviously trying to stomp out the poly markets, and because it would affect their business and their industry. And so it is, yeah, the poly markets are a fascinating angle on it, to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And you bring up an interesting point on fan interest. I think the NFL is obviously this behemoth in this country in terms of its popularity. Part of a small part of that is the rise of fantasy football,
Mhm.
um, because people now have an interest in watching other games to see how their player did, and sports betting is much the same when you're essentially talking about this whole universe of sports that people can bet on, and all of a sudden you get in too deep, which I would highly recommend not doing, where you're watching some fourth flight tennis match in a country you've never heard of, because you got to chase and make up what you lost that day.
You're on the tennis metaphors today. I see.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just, we're trying to, we, we got commentary on the podcast that we weren't doing enough tennis coverage.
Enough
So I'm,
tennis.
I'm really trying to overdo it.
I'm
So
not sure
that,
this is what they would be talking about.
no, so that the AI will spit out a more
Right.
positive result for in the stack of things that we want to attract those
Right.
viewers. And I'm just trying to add to our stack here by including tennis.
Professional callback there is what the host just did. That's fantastic.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to, I'm kind of an amateur at this podcast host thing. So I'm just trying to
You're
up my
like
game
5
here a
in
little.
now. That's seasoned vet.
Well,
But
yeah, I guess.
to your point, I mean, there's a lot of academic papers on the rise of fans becoming more fans of individual players versus teams, and we're seeing that in college about with the transfer portal. All of us. I mean, I should say all of us. I don't love it. I wish I could follow a player for 3 or 4 years for my team and not have to worry about them leaving and being a free agent. But as a as an organization, you need to figure out, okay, do you want to embrace that person and be okay with these transient fans? And it's not like what we grew up with. And then I think about, how do you monetize that transient fan? I think if you sit down and take our old man hat off, you might think about some new and creative thoughts there.
Well, and I do think that happens probably a little bit more on the professional level, with people following individual players, than it does at this point on the collegiate level. And that's partially because if you're a fan in college, you have more of an affinity. You probably have a natural built-in affinity for that particular school or that institution. I think on the professional level, as with free agency and everything else, you might have somebody who you're a fan of, and it might be on your favorite team, but as they move on, you tend to follow them and you become kind of a secondary fan of that
Right.
particular school. And maybe that'll happen in college also, but
I think in time
the
it will, yeah.
yeah, because for being a Milwaukee Bucks fan, and obviously the controversy around Giannis, does he want to be in Milwaukee? Does he not want to be in Milwaukee? Whatever it might be, wherever Giannis goes, I'm going to follow Giannis because I enjoy watching him play basketball.
Yeah.
Now, again, the Bucks will probably still be number one, but if they trade Giannis, they probably won't be very good. So I'll need another. I'll need a team that I can follow that is going to be
That's
playing in
good.
the playoffs.
That's good.
All right.
All
Well, it's
right.
your serve.
My
You're up.
my final serve, I think. Have you downloaded you have the ESPN app, right?
I do only to watch games, but I don't actually do anything else on it other than use it for ESPN Plus because that's where they have it.
You know, this might defeat my point, but I'm batting like I'm over. Like I've asked
No,
probably
you've been getting on base on this podcast at least right
uh,
right now.
dozens of people about this ESPN. They have a new feature. It's called Sports Center for You, and it has it's powered by AI. It takes the preferences that you set and it creates literally a Sports Center show in vertical video format for my interests. So I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. I open the app in the morning, and not only does it have clips, it gives context and has a AI voiceover using current Sports Center anchors, of which I can't remember who they are right now. But it's
We'll just go
incredibly
with we'll go with the older anchors that we all know and
right.
love.
Well, in honor of the recent 30 for 30, let's use Stuart Scott.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so it would be in Stuart Scott's voice and giving context to the highlights rather than just here's a home run and you have no idea what impact of the game it was. And it gives you that for Cardinals, Tottenham, St. Louis, or South Carolina Gamecocks for me, and then it's done. And that idea of AI level personalization, and this all is what I'm talking about is not necessarily AI, but it's about your owned and operated platforms. So obviously, social media has a role in everything that we do, but you don't have any control over the feed that you're given. You click one link on accident, and now your feed is all politics. I don't want that right now. And you don't have any control as an organization. You don't have any control on what your fans see, and they're seeing things out of order. When you train fans to come on your platform first, or at least part of their mix, then now you can not only control what they see, but then now you can sell them things, right? And you can learn from them, building out that personal profile. Um, the other thing that I like when you think about owned and operated platforms is I would like for people to get out of their own content. If let's take LMU for example. If there's a great feature story on your your basketball guard, even if you didn't write it, it's okay to link to it on your owned and operated platforms. Everyone will do that in social media, but they resist it on your owned and operated platforms. I don't understand why. That's been a nut that's been hard to crack in this industry. And I think if you can train your fans that your platform is the trusted source, the curated source for all things LMU or South Carolina Gamecocks or whomever, then I think now you're going to see your audience grow, and then now you have a controlled experience.
Do enough pro teams and or universities have all the information that they need to do something similar to what ESPN has? Because look, the ESPN experience as described makes a lot of sense because you've already clicked on the teams that you like. They can basically take all your viewing history and then customize it for you. No different than the algorithm you would have on any social media platform. Our university and or pro team websites, do they have enough of a 360 view of that particular fan to be able to pull something like that off?
First thing, I just have to comment on. I love the way you say algorithm. That you say algorithm. That's pretty. That's pretty
Well,
good.
that's the Wisconsin accent coming back
Yeah.
back in. Anything with the O, I
Yeah.
am going to accentuate.
And then step two. This is my turn at a callback. When you have the modern tech stack, you can lay AI on top of it and deliver something like that. Now, an individual school, an individual team, I'm not sure it makes a ton of sense for them at this point. But a league, certainly the SEC, Big 12, Big 10, that can make a lot of sense. So as you're as you're selecting your favorite player, your favorite team, your favorite sport, that can make a little bit of sense. I'm not sure you can fill enough content yet for an individual school or professional team, but you're on the right track.
Well, and I do think the better view you have of that particular fan, the better opportunity you're gonna have to market them something new that arrived in your team shop,
Yeah,
or you know what their ticketing preferences are. You have an opportunity to do that. You know which player bio they've clicked
yeah,
on the most and can deliver up that content. You know, you did bring up something interesting though. I do think that, uh, whether it's a pro team and or a university, they do not do a good enough job of linking to outside stories. They might do it on social media, but they're not doing it on their official platforms, and I think that really takes away from the traffic that you could accrue, because if you know that that's your one-stop shop for everything,
well, the
you're
argument
gonna go there
against
more.
yeah, the argument against it, which is fair, is that we've all been trained you don't want to take anyone away from your platforms. And that's fair, that's valid. But I argue that the trust you gain by building the trusted source that, hey, if I'm looking for the video that everyone's talking about, or the highlight, or the feature story, instead of Googling it, why shouldn't the official source that should know me better than anyone know what I want to see?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. All right, well, we've got one more, for me, one more serve, and I'm just trying to get my serve in here, because I think that would be probably a good thing, but I'm gonna go with, real estate and facilities, because I think that's always been a big thing, and it obviously probably has transitioned a little bit to professional sports more so, than universities, because again, right now, if given a choice, if somebody's going to give you $100 million for a facility, you might want to spend that on NIL rather than, on your facility. But the concept of that year round facility, and I think you're starting to see that trickle into college sports. But clearly, you look at what the Atlanta Braves did, in the Battery Atlanta, kind of a mixed use development, and again, that generated supposedly, $59 million in revenue for the Braves in 1 year. And so you're starting to see that now happen a little bit in, college athletics. I know Iowa State is developing a project. I know Ole Miss, Wake Forest. You're seeing more and more of these, but I think people are finally realizing that they have these fantastic venues. How can you maximize revenue in
Right.
those venues year round? And that is something that is ever more important, on the collegiate level, as you try to find new sources of revenue. But it has always been of utmost importance on the professional level. I mean, that's why any of the NBA arenas, are typically multi-use. It's not like they're just playing basketball in
Yeah.
those venues. They have concerts there. They have a ton of things, and that is also why you're seeing private equity, which I could have chose as a topic. I chose to leave that one out because it's too complicated right now. But I think that's why you're seeing private equity kind of make its way into college sports, because ultimately private equity realizes that we are not maximizing our venues. Now, whether or not you can get universities to agree to cede those venues to private equity or whoever is managing them at that point is another thing. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. Kind of similar to your topic. Mine's more of a macro,
Yeah.
look at it, and yours is kind of a micro look at it.
I mean, I mean, generally speaking, totally agree. That's a big opportunity because uh, campuses, athletic departments, they have two things that it takes to succeed in that world, and that is they have a magnet, they have a venue that thousands of people come to, however many times the venue holds events, and then their customer acquisition cost is drastically reduced because you have this huge database of people that already have an affinity for at least your brand. And then something I like to talk about is that oftentimes we think of our fans as singular, like they only have one interest, and that's my team. But obviously, they have lots of interests, whether it be music or food or theater. And to bring all of those things in a in a mixed use space is really interesting. But the one that I've been floored about, and I can't believe it hasn't gotten more attention. Did you read that Texas A&M is building like a retirement home?
Yeah, I did see that.
I mean,
That is
Jesus.
fascinating. I
I mean,
mean,
it's
is it gonna be like
brilliant.
is it well, there have been some of those that will allow you to do the kind of the old school experience, right? Like, you can go
That's what
live
I was
on campus for a week, and that but when the Texas A&M, as soon as you said that, I just thought of Will Ferrell streaking down the road. That's, like, the
yeah.
only thing I
Well,
could think of.
I thought of Blue like doing bench presses
Yeah.
in the campus
"You're
rec
my boy,
facility.
Blue." Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
right.
Blue probably
Maybe that's a
let's
bad idea. I don't know.
well, no, I mean, Blue would have qualified for sure to live there because he was definitely over the age that whatever A&M's gonna put the minimum age to live in this kind of retirement,
I mean,
community.
I would hope. I mean, we need to have a separate podcast on the rules that we would have for this retirement community. Like, for
Yeah.
example, can they participate in campus rec? Because I mean, you get a couple of, three 60-year-old dudes. I think they could run roughshod through campus rec 3-on-3 tournament. Just old
Well,
school book shots and such.
yeah, it would be more of, like, how many teams are in this tournament, because if we're talking about
Duration's a problem.
well, that's my point. If it's
Yeah,
just if it's a semifinal and they only have to play 2 games, yeah, I'll take the seasoned vets, but if we're talking about a 64 team intramural tournament, there's no way they're surviving
yeah.
that.
They,
Now,
they may
y
they may start hot and then peter out towards the end of the
they
bracket.
would, pickleball, curling, if you have that, and shuffleboard. I mean, they would,
Don't
they
even
would and I'm talking like the old school shuffleboard, not like the table shuffleboard.
big
That
sticks.
that shuffleboard, they dominate. Yeah, with the
Yeah.
stick. I mean, I was don't if you are at A&M and M and you have an opportunity
Yeah.
to play against the retirement people, in shuffleboard, don't do it.
Don't do it.
And don't bet on it. You shouldn't be betting on it anyway, but don't bet on it, just to kinda tie everything in. All right, Eric, we've got this last topic is something that I know is near and dear to your heart.
Uh-oh.
Typically in these year-end wrap-up shows, you talk about celebrity deaths, or other things. We lost Robert Redford this year, and I know that your argument is that The Natural is the best sports movie of all time. So you've got a couple minutes here to just explain why that is the case, unless you've changed your mind.
I haven't changed my mind. I do think this is something that you can't change someone's mind on, so I'll acknowledge that I'm not going to probably change people's minds. However, I mean, you have quite arguably the greatest music score of any movie there is. You have one of
Whoa,
the
whoa,
greatest
whoa! Any
actors.
movie ever? Like, you're
Yes,
talking any movie ever?
yes.
Okay, all
The
right.
the dramatic home run score, you play it for anyone that's seen the movie and halfway likes baseball, they're gonna get chills. I mean, it's just gonna happen. I mean, you have so many great characters like Wilford Brimley and of course Robert Redford. You have A-list actors in there. The storyline is amazing. It's the kid. He comes up, he gets knocked down, and then he fights his way back and delivers in the end. And there's a love story. I mean, Jesus, what's not to like? And it's set back it's a period piece, so it's set back
That's
in
the
the
problem. I mean,
in the
that's you know
50s
what?
or
I
whatever.
finally figured it out. That's my issue with The Natural. It's a period piece. I can't do it. Like, it feels too old to me.
Well, you're just weird.
Well, yeah, that there is. I've been called far worse, but I will reveal my best sports movie of all time is For the Love of the Game, which is kind of under the radar. Not everybody has even seen it, but to me, the story of Billy Chapel,
Oh,
and
it's in my
him
top
over.
five for sure.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, you've got Yankee Stadium, you've got Vin Scully on the call, his love of his teammates and the camaraderie, and I think it also does a really good job. It actually looks like a baseball game, a little bit more so than maybe some of the other ones. But the other thing that really resonates with me about that movie, and certainly more as I go longer into working in sports, is his whole identity was tied up into being a baseball pitcher.
Yeah.
And he can't even comprehend what life is going to be like after that. And he's nearing that end, and he's coming to that realization. And I think for college athletes, the reality is most of them will be done playing after college, and a lot of them struggle with that, and professional athletes struggle after they finish. So for me, that human emotion portion of it is just really makes it a spectacular movie.
I couldn't agree more, and I think I might be the only other person that agrees with you that it's in the top 5 because it never makes a top 5.
No, I mean, you got Hoosiers
Yeah,
is
and
always
Hoosiers
in
is in
there.
mine for sure.
Yeah,
And
Hoosiers
people
is
always forget about the Rockies because you can't pick which one. That's a sports movie.
yeah, no, well, and then you get the debate on whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not, since we're in that time of year. So,
Well, what do you say?
sure, yeah, why not? I mean, it anything that tangentially
Yeah,
touches it, I mean, we're gonna go with it.
I'm down with that. We need to find more that we disagree on, so maybe we'd have another pod. This is
We
me
well,
angling for another visit.
Well, yeah, no, you're a friend of the pod, and we definitely will bring you back at some point. I just don't know. I'm not in charge of the scheduling, as people can clearly tell, because I get a lot of comments on, "Oh, you got some great guests," and I'm like, "Yeah, I wish I was actually the ones
I
getting
feel
them
like
on the
wait
on
till
the
number
show."
6 comes out.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah, yeah. This might be the end of the podcast, actually. This could be the last
been a good
episode of
ride. Been a
Margins of
good ride.
Victory. It's been really fun. I'm your host, Craig Pintens. We were joined by Dr. Eric Nichols today. Thanks for Eric for being on. Happy rest of 2025, and
Yeah.
have a great 2026. Any closing thoughts for you, Eric?
No, I just appreciate this podcast. I think it's really, really good, and it hits the mark. And except for this current episode, they've been bangers, and keep it going.
Yeah, we'll look for more bangers in 2026.
All
Thanks,
right,
Eric Nichols,
take
for
care.
joining us, and have a great rest of the year.